Yeah.
Then on December 24th is when December 24th.
Merry Christmas.
There was probably a week or so prior, I had done a video on the channel, which you can see, how you hook up any analog mixer, whether it's a desktop mixer or something like this, how you hook it up to Studio One, which is the DAW that we're using. How you hook it up, how you use the I/O on your interface, how you can make that loop. So even if you don't have a console and all you wanted to do, let's say, was just hook up some hardware, you understood the philosophy. Well, that video was super popular, got a ton of views.
Yeah.
One person that saw, well, lots of people at PreSonus actually saw it because it was a Studio One video. They said, wow, thanks so much. Nobody has ever done this, showing how you integrate hardware with Studio One. Thanks for the video. Would have been nice, his statement was, and he said it in a jokingly way, very good friends.
Would have been really nice.
Was really nice. They're really nice people, and I've done a long-term relationship with PreSonus, and we love their stuff, and we love Studio One and all that.
Yes.
He said, but it would have been nice if you would have used our Quantum 4848s instead of the Apollos.
Yeah, and David's response was, what?
My response was, what's a 4848? So then he sent me the link, and we come to find out that the Quantum 4848 is 32. It's 48 if you use ADAT, but for analog inputs and outputs, it's 32 out,
32 in. So that's 2x16.
So it's 2x16 in one chassis for about 1/5 the price.
Yep.
And I said, wait a minute, you're telling me that we could get 32 in and out for, at the time, about $1,500?
$1,500, yeah.
Where on the Apollo X16s, about $9,000?
Yeah, for two of them, yeah.
$4,500 a piece?
Yeah, it's $9,000 worth of X16 and one $1,500 PreSonus chassis.
Right, and I said, well, okay, that sounds great, but I said, hey, if you want to send me a 4848, we'd be sure, I will shoot it out against the Apollo, and if it's better or equally as good,
we'll using them.
We'll use them. A week or so goes by, and FedEx shows up at my house with a 4848. And I said, oh, this is going to be interesting. So now we talked about this, and I said, there's no way this 4848 is going to sound, it can't be as good as these Apollos.
There's no way that the converter quality is going to be the same.
It's going to be the same.
There's no way that the auto quality flowing through this thing for 1/3 of the price of one X16 doing the job of two X16s. There's no way that this thing is going to sound as good as an Apollo. And that's honestly, because dude, like, you've always been a UA guy.
Still am.
You still are a UA guy.
Love their plugins. Yeah. I've been using them forever.
It's like, so like you figure though, just because like UA's reputation of one of the better sounding IOs out there. So, you're looking at a PreSonus board that's 1/3 the price. There's no way this is going to sound as good. So we did a shootout. So the people asked me in the beginning, well, why did you buy the X16s to start with? And the only reason why I really bought them is because it was what I knew. Yeah.
I've been using Universal Audio Apollo interfaces ever since they've been out. And that's all I ever used. And I love them, and they have the DSP chips for the plugins and all of that. And so I just bought them because that's what I knew. I didn't even know there was a 4848. I know there's Apogees, and there's Antelope products, and there's all Motu, and there's other ones, but I have no experience with those brands. But I know Universal Audio.
Yep.
And so that's why I bought the X16s, and the X16s were great. So
and especially like, listen, in a situation where we're going into unfamiliar territory.
Yeah, you buy what you know.
You buy what you know. you at least, hey, listen, at least we know these, so that's your thought process.
And also, again, just like with the console, the lack of information that was available at the time.
Yeah, we didn't even know the 4848 existed.
I didn't even know there was such a thing. So they sent me one. So we embarked on what I thought was going to be a one video shootout where we did a video, and again, it's on you go watch the video, the first video. There's 3 or 4 of them, but go watch the first one where we took the small 16 or 20 channel session.
It was a 16 track session.
No processing on it whatsoever. All we did was take it out of the Studio One into the converters and then back into Studio One.
Yep.
With the Apollo.
We just ran audio.
Through it.
Just a basic mix. We just ran audio through the Apollo.
No EQ, no compression.
Yeah, just basic audio.
Just stuff, little balance, little panning, that's it.
Printed it in.
Then I disconnected the Apollo and I hooked up the 4848 and did the same thing.
Yeah, just ran the same audio,
Same
the
audio,
same
man.
board settings, same everything.
Everything level, so it was perfectly identically level matched.
Yep.
And then I started to listen back and forth. And in the video, I didn't show people which one was which because
Yeah.
we, just like with us, we said, if you know that the one is, well, for one of those units, it's $4,500 versus $1,500. You're going to think before I even hit play
that this one's going to sound better. You're going to
think it would.
You're going to be predisposed to think that this track, because it's this much more money, is going to sound better than this one. It has to.
It's going to sound better.
You're immediately prejudiced that way.
Absolutely.
If you know which track is which.
Absolutely. So we did that. Comments below. People didn't know which one it was. It was about a 50-50 split on what people thought. A lot of people guessed. I personally didn't hear a difference. I sent the files to Dave, didn't tell him which ones were which. He didn't know what the difference was.
I put them in my system and I played them back and I was like,
he couldn't tell the difference.
I cannot quantify the difference. Is there a difference from this one to this one? It's like, and the other side of it too is like sometimes, you're listening to it over and over and over again. You're trying to perceive a difference.
Yeah, you're trying to hear a difference.
So like you're listening to it one time, and I swear to God, listening to it one time, track A was brighter.
Yep.
Next time I listened to it, track B was brighter.
Right.
So, you're like, no matter what, and the other side of that too is like the more we listen to it, the more differences we thought we heard.
Yeah, right. Because you start
because you start zoning in and zoning in.
Right.
But to just listen to these two tracks side by side once through, there was no difference between them.
There really wasn't
at all.
Well,
that you could hear.
Nothing I could hear.
No audible difference that we could quantify. None.
So once we did that, then Dave did a second video, which is where he went in on an analyzer and a scope, and we put the EQ
but
curves.
This was after the comment section exploded.
After the comment section exploded, the video was really popular. We had no idea people were going to be. So Dave said, "Let me do a deep dive. Don't tell me which one is which."
Yep.
He went in again. You can watch that video. He went in and did all analytical stuff, put it on a scope. The audios are almost identical.
Null tested it.
They're null tested it, everything.
Yep.
Did that video. Then we did a third video in the series where I, gave people a challenge. So I want you to do a blindfold test so you can't hear when I'm switching. You can't see when I'm switching back and forth.
Don't look at the screen. Close your eyes and listen.
And then the last video was we revealed which one it was. But in the end, what we had found out was those Quantum 4848s were identical in sounds to the Apollo X16s.
Yeah.
Now, they're different units with different features, and all the videos you can go watch will explain all those differences. So you can't, they're not exactly apples to apples, but the sound of the converters to us were exactly the same.
Or and even to in my testing on it too, the null test, there was below the noise floor, there is a difference. Like a -60 and below, it doesn't null. But I still put that to the fact that you're running audio through a console.
Right.
The console has tolerances. It changes from time to time as the console heats up, as just as the audio flows through it. Those tolerances change. So you're gonna have differences. Scientifically, there's a difference.
Sure.
But audibly, there's no difference. I apply that more to the fact that it was run through a console twice than the fact that there's any difference in those converters.
Fair enough. And
that was my conclusion.
And you couldn't hear it anyway. At least we couldn't.
Right.
So all those videos are on the website or on the channel. You should go check them out. And what did that mean? That ended up meaning I sold the 3 Apollos and I bought another Quantum.
Yep.
So now we have the ability to have 64 in and out because each one of those Quantums are 32.
Yeah. In 2 chassis, we have more I/O than we had in the 3 X16 chassis. And in 2 chassis, we have all the I/O we are ever going to need.
Yeah, we got all 64 in and out. It's all done.
Yeah, we're never gonna need to add another I/O to this. We did, however, have to add the third Quantum, the 24
for the monitor section,
just so that we could have monitors.
Because the X16s had those, the Quantum 4848s do not
have monitor outs. So we needed monitor outs. So the only reason we added the third one is just that we could have monitors. That's the only reason.
Right.
And the only reason we did that was because we wanted to stick with the monitor controller on the board rather than have to go to an outboard monitor controller. That's the only reason we did that.
Correct. So all of those videos are there. You can go watch all the details if you want to learn about converters and you want to geek out on the sound differences and all that stuff, all those videos are there. That'll help you, you know, make that decision. But that's what we did. So we switched to the Quantums and got rid of the Apollos, and then all the extra cash was left over. We bought more gear with it. So we just we just reinvested.
We're gonna go shopping. You know?
So that was in December. At the end of January, on January 21st, I did a video, do our 6 month, at that time it was 6 months.
Yeah.
SSL review. I kind of gave a 30-minute video on all my thoughts and where we were at that point and the things I liked about the Origin, some of the things I didn't like about the Origin, and there are things that I don't like. And so you should go watch that video. Then on March 30th, or a little bit before that, we had more gear coming in from audio-scape. The more we started to mix on it, the more ideas we had. Oh, I'd love to add this and I'd love to add that, which is why now you got a whole tower full of stuff.
Yeah.
So I said to Dave, you know, we need to, because we knew what the last rack rebuild was. It was 6 hours. It was all day. It was a long, long day.
It was a long day. Yeah, we started rebuilding that rack at 8, and we wrapped up at 2, 3 o'clock.
Yeah, with only like a 30-minute lunch break. We worked straight through,
yeah,
and
it was a nonstop
deal. And you could see again. You can watch the whole live stream on the video.
Yeah.
So I said, you know, I know what. Here's where we want to go. I know now we know what the board's capable of. Mm-hmm. I want to future-proof this thing as much as possible, meaning I want us to rearrange the racks. I want to build the racking in a way. I want to get all the cabling that we need. So if 6 months from now, we decide, hey, I want to get this in here, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. I don't want to have us to have to rip the whole studio down every time we want to buy something, or we're not sure what we're going to want to do.
Every time we make a change, we have to tear the studio down and put it back together. Let's see if there's a way that we can reconfigure the racks, reconfigure the cabling, so that we don't have to tear it all down.
Right, we don't have to tear it all down.
To add something to make a change. So
we decided, well, what are we going to want to do? What am I going to want to do in the foreseeable future that I know? Well, I said, I know I want to add some hardware reverbs and delays. Maybe not use the short faders because we think there's some issues with fading and latency, and we're going to do some videos on that in the future.
We definitely need to investigate that.
Yeah, we got to investigate that because when we routed the plugins out to faders and tried to blend them with the audio, something doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah.
And we're not sure what that is. Our guess is it's probably something to do with latency and causing some phasing issues, but we got to investigate that. But the board is capable, as we learned, that we can run. We have 4 stereo. We can run with auxes. We can run hardware reverbs and delay units.
Yeah, we've got 4 stereo groups. There are 2
4 stereo groups, right?
There's Qs and there's auxes, so we can run 4 stereo effect units on the sends off of the channels.
That's right.
So and then feed them back into the master return. So, okay, let's do that.
Let's do that. So I went out and bought a couple of delay units. We bought a couple of reverb. Well, one we got from audio-scape, and then we bought an additional reverb unit. Then I thought, because originally we were mixing with channel strips in the box, where we were using it just for the dynamics, because this board doesn't have dynamics on it, it only has EQ.
And to be fair, the board level above this doesn't have dynamics.
There is no SSL that has 32 channels of dynamics and EQ. There is none.
So to be fair,
you have to buy a vintage G or an E series, which is what this is based off of.
Yeah.
So they don't have those.
So we do get a lot of comments from people. The board sucks. It doesn't have dynamics. It's like the board doesn't suck. It doesn't have dynamics in it. The board would be 4 times as much expensive if they put dynamics. It'd also be a lot bigger.
Bigger, and it'd be about another $40,000.
Yeah,
it'd almost double the price.
So let's just. Our whole intention was we'll run channel strips on every track for the dynamics, and then out to the board. That's how we did it.
And that's how we did it, and it was fine. Until I said, hey, I wonder what it would sound like if I bought one 500 series SSL 611 dynamics, which would be the SSL dynamic section with the gate that would have been in this board that was in the E and G series consoles back in the day. Let's buy one and let's test it against the plugin and let's see if it's any better. Or do we think we like it better? And we did. We did a bunch of videos on that. We compared them to several different plugins. You can go watch the videos. Yep. And what we found was that we liked the hardware better, had more depth, more 3D, all the things we'll talk about a little bit later. And I said, okay, if we're gonna future-proof, is there a way, if we wanted to, what if I wanted to put one dynamic on every single one of the 32 channels? What would we need to do that? Well, we would need
A patch bay.
A patch bay. And we would also need 3 500 series racks for each one of the modules. And we can permanently patch them to each of the individual channels. And if you want to use the compressor in Dynamics, you can at the touch of a button, or you don't have to.
Yeah, just normal the patch bay.
And that's what we did.
Plug them in, and you're done. They're on every channel.
So that was the third part of this future proofing was, okay, we want some reverbs and delays. We want the ability to do 32 dynamics, and we want to have the patch bay already in the rack, wired up and ready to go.
For the future.
For the future. And we decided that we were going to do that. So on March 30th is when that project began. So from between January 21st and March 30th, I got all that gear.
Yep.
Stacked it up on the table.
Lots of plans being made.
A lot of cables. And then we said, okay, let's come down and let's do this. And let's do it once, let's do it again. And then we don't have to worry about it. If we get another piece of gear or something else, all we have to do is shove it into the rack and plug the cable in because it's already patched in and it's all ready to go. And we did that on March 30th.
Was that March 30th?
That was March 30th, 2022. And that was
10 hours.
10 or 11 hours.
10 or 11 hours. We were talking about, let's live stream it. No.
We were going to originally live stream it until we started to think about what was really involved.
Yeah.
And then we said, okay. And there is a video of the before and the after. I did put a video together so you can see where we started and where we ended up. So, but you just don't see the detail.
Yeah, please. Yeah, it was 11 hours. Day. It was a horrifyingly long day.
Yeah. So what we basically did was we pulled the console again. We disconnected every single cable from the console, every single cable from all the gear.
The gear came out.
We laid them all out on the floor by length.
Yeah, you should have seen this place. There was cable everywhere.
To try to figure out, well, because we had 15 footers, 20 footers, 10 footers.
We didn't have 20 footers yet.
Oh no,
we did not have 20. We had 10s, 15s. Okay?
We had no 20s yet.
We didn't have any 20s, and we had all the racks torn down again. Dave offloaded the I/O was offloaded, the computer was offloaded, and the power distribution was offloaded to
another rack.
To another rack.
Which you can't see it, but it's behind me.
Yeah, stuck over here in the corner.
Stuck in the corner, you can't see it. Go watch the video, you'll see it. You'll see it. You'll see everything all set up. We did that, so we ended up adding another 12 space rack for all the computer power distribution.
Yeah. So that was, to be honest, you had that rack sitting around.
That rack
you didn't have to buy that one.
Didn't have to buy that rack. I had it.
We had it, so okay.
We also added a third level on top because once again, audio-scape was so generous and sent us some more 1176s, and there'll be reviews on that. So we went up another level.
Yep.
So we had more space for more gear.
And the other thing too was and this is a suggestion I made a while back was, what if we put the racks?
Yes. Reposition them
back in that cubby hole rather than right next to the board.
Right.
And that was, and we, honestly, neither one of us thought it was going to make that big of a difference. It made a huge difference in the room.
It did.
We literally moved the racks 2 feet, and it changed the whole room.
It really did. So we weren't planning on that. We thought the racks were going to be in the original position, which was kind of on the corner of the console on an angle. You can go watch the videos. And but then once we disconnected everything, and I said, yeah, maybe Dave's right. What if we put him into the cubby? There's like a jog. And again, you go watch. You can't see it on this video, but there's a jog in the wall which has like a nice little kind of dead space.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to push them all the way back because then you couldn't get to the back of the racks. So I said, what if we sat the racks right in front of that cubby and give us a little pass-through way? And that's where they are now. And it's like he said, it opened up the room.
It changed the whole room.
It's really weird how it did.
Yeah.
We only moved them this far.
We moved them 2 feet. And the room's completely different.
Completely different.
So.
Then, what did we learn? Moving them 3 feet, I guess we'll get into that now.
Yeah, let's talk about the big mistake.
So that was the March 30th is when we did that project. You can go watch the video.
But we knew we're going to move the rack.
Right.
The cables aren't going to be long enough.
Right. So again, now for this phase, well, what did we get right? What did we learn? Just like in phase one, well, we had much better cable management this time around.
Oh yeah.
Because we had split put all the computers and the interfaces into one rack and all the hardware into other racks.
Yep.
So when it comes off the SSL, it goes into 2 separate PATs.
Yep.
So this way you don't have cables all on top of each other. It kind of took those 2 big rat's nests and kind of made them nice and easy to manage.
Yeah, it splits the two bundles of cables off in 2 different directions,
Which is nice.
which made it a lot easier to work with the cables as well.
You didn't have this big fire hose kind of cables.
Exactly. Yeah.
We also, as we were working over the last month or so from the end of phase 1, we got much more comfortable with the workflow and understood where things needed to be laid out, and the whole future-proofing concept came out of that.
Yep.
By moving the power and the computers to another rack, again, it freed up everything.
A lot of rack space.
It freed up a lot of rack space. It also, we added, again, another patch bay, a 4th patch bay for future-proofing. Means half of it's not even being used right now,
Right.
but we got it for future-proofing. And then we'll talk about here, we also, in that process, as Dave said, once we moved the racks, I would say 20% of the cables
Yeah.
were too short now.
Yeah, because we had 15 footers and 10 footers. The 15 footers we looked at, so we'll send the 15 footers from this end of the board.
Yeah, the farthest end all the way
We'll
over.
send the 10 footers from that end of the board. It should be fine. Unfortunately,
It wasn't.
several of them came up too short. Where there were 6 or 8 that came
Yeah,
up.
there was a lot of them.
There was a
actually.
bunch, yeah, that
There
came
there
up
was a
too
lot of them
short.
that were just too short because. So then I said we had 10 footers and we really needed 15s.
We needed 20s and 15s instead of 15s and 10s at this point.
Right, that's right. So what I ended up doing was I ended up saying, because again at the time of the recording of this video, where all the supply chain shortages, people were out of stock on a lot of stuff. It was hard to get the right lengths of cables.
Yeah.
But we had a bunch of we had 10 footers.
We
So I
had
said-
plenty of cables here. We had all the cables we
They
needed.
were
They
just
just
the wrong
weren't long
length.
enough.
So I said, what if we get these little coupler extensions and buy a bunch of shorties and put them together and
we-
make a 14 footer out of a
So we had
10
a bunch.
footer.
So we had a bunch of 3-foot extensions,
Yep.
and we had these basically gender changers to join 2 D sub cables together.
Which worked. I mean, it
Which we tied all the
screwed them
cables together
and
and
seemed like it worked.
plugged everything in, and it seemed like everything was functioning. So when I left at the end of that day, I left feeling like we were gone. We were up and running.
We tested out just getting
Yeah.
audio, didn't
Yeah.
do a full test, but it was working.
We passed all the audio through all
was
the patch
working.
bays. We plugged every piece in before I left. We had audio passing
Yep.
through everything. We just didn't listen to it.
Yeah, right. We just assumed it would
Yeah,
be fine.
it was fine.
The next day I came into the studio, I started to work, and I started to realize that I'm only hearing things out of the left side and not the right side. Mm-hmm. And what we determined was those gender changers, those couplers, joining those 2 things together, was, even though they were nice and tight, they were making kind of an intermittent connection on some of the cables.
Plus, some of the audio passing through was not passing through at full fidelity.
Yeah, it was really weird.
It was really strange. So basically, what we kind of after we brainstormed it through a little while was like, okay, the gender changers, 1, they're not making proper contact, and 2, they're changing the resistance of the cable.
I guess.
They had to be changed. Something was going on that we could not explain. So it's like, well, and we talked it through. We looked at it. Says the only thing we can think of is that the cables with gender changers on them were the ones that are giving us the problem.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to get them out of there.
So I had to get them out of there. So then I said, we started looking at it. And again, again, through the course of this is where we get to, better planning on the front end and knowing more what we would have needed as far as cable goes from day 1.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had to do all of this. But then looking at the console, looking at all the cables, and we had 3 or 4 different brands of cables. Some were higher end cables, some were more affordable cables, and we had everything in between.
And a couple of them were really cheap.
Some of them were really cheap because that's all I could get at that particular time because everybody was out of stock on stuff at that time. And so we said, okay, what are we going to do? So we going to get rid of all the connectors, the little extenders, and we're going to now, because the racks are moved, we got to go from 15 footers to 20 footers on a lot of cables.
Yeah, now we basically are going to have to eliminate most, if not all, of the 10 footers have to go. The 15 footers are going to have to go to that side of the board. The 20 footers have to come from this side of the board.
Yes, and that's what we did.
So we went and bought, I don't even know how many freaking 20 footers we bought.
A lot, but I know the bill was expensive. So I just said, you know what? I said, now I'm saying, you know what? again, I can't stress to you enough to plan this as much as you can on the front end.
And also, the other side of that too is plan it on the front end, but also if you think you need a 15-foot cable,
Buy a 20.
Buy a 20.
Right.
If you think you need a 20-foot cable, buy a 25.
They make them.
They make them. Just if you have to put a wind up of slack in the back somewhere, is it going to suck? Yeah, it's going to suck.
But you can do
it anyway.
But you can do it, and
because
you'll
it'll
find,
save you the grief that we went through.
Because we only moved the racks 3 feet, and half our cables were now too short.
Everything was wrong. Well, we moved the racks a couple feet, but we also lifted the patch bays up 4 feet.
That's true.
So
from
that
down here,
changed,
we wanted them at eye level. So when you came over to the racks, and now you're running across the floor, but then you got to go up 3 or 4 feet.
Yep.
To get to the patch bays and get it all properly strain relieved and all of that stuff.
And
so we went ahead and we bought a whole bunch of it. And this time we went out and bought mostly all Mogami.
Yeah.
Because I said, you know what? I'm not going. I want
jumpers weren't available. Hosa doesn't make 20-footers.
No, they don't.
So it's at that point in time, it was like, if we need cables, it has to be Mogami. They're the only ones that are in stock.
Yeah, the only ones that are in stock.
And you bought them from 3 or 4 different places.
And we know they're warranted for life, and Mogami Gold makes great stuff. And I just said, you know what? We're so far into this thing, I'm just going to bite the bullet and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But if I would have known how much we were going to do in phase 1, when I bought the console, I could have bought all those D-sub cables, Mogami Golds, and I could have financed it, and I could have spread out the payments instead of spending $1,000 here and $1,000 there and $2,000 here on cables.
Because we went from 4 15-foot cables to, I just counted them.
Yeah, how many we got?
We've got 36
coming off the board.
D-sub to D-sub cables.
Right.
Coming off the board to the patch bays, to the IO, and so forth. There's 36 D-sub to D-sub cables, and those are all at this point either Mogami or jumpers.
They're all Mogami and jumpers.
And they're all 15s and 20s.
All of them.
Okay.
There isn't a 10-footer left.
There's not a 10-footer left attached to the board. Okay.
And we started with 4
We're
15
up to 30,
footers.
Yeah, 36. Okay.
So between phase 1 and the last video, and where we're about to end this video, we went from 4 to 36. And we still don't have. We still don't have short fader inserts. You could do another 4.
Yeah, we could do 8 more and have short fader insert points.
Absolutely right. If you wanted to.
Let's not say we did.
But that's where we ended up.
Yeah.
So
and plus on the fact too is like there's about a dozen D-sub breakout cables on the back of the rack
for all the gear.
So I mean, if you 36, it's 48 cables at this point.
Pretty much.
Major 48. But there's other cables too. We're not going to talk. There's other cables doing other things, but we're looking at 48 D-sub type cables in this rack setup right now. To hook everything up, and we're still not done hooking up. So
there's still more you could do.
We could hook up more. We don't need to at this point, there is available. So again, visualizing what you need to do, and now that there are videos out there that tell you
what to do,
because there weren't. We went into this blind in phase 1.
There's nothing.
We went into phase 2 blind. We didn't even know half of what we learned on that phase.
We didn't know what we didn't know until we got there.
Phase 2 was 2 complete rack rebuilds.
Two complete rack rebuilds.
Complete rebuilds.
And along with cable replacement.
Yeah, and a massive number of cable replacement.
A lot of cable replacement. So what did we learn at the end of this? We learned, don't use, or be very cautious. I wouldn't use those cable extenders. If you try to go with home runs.
Yeah, everything. Let's put it this way. Everything has to be a home run. End of story.
Yeah, I guess you could use those, and I'm sure people have used them. We tried them.
Don't do it.
And there were more headache than what it was worth.
Do it.
And then again, like we've said 5 times, better understanding and planning on the front end will absolutely help you, not only with knowing how much you need to spend, but maybe help you then finance it in a better way for you. Yeah. And then it may help you maybe eliminate some of the having teardowns and rebuilds over and over and over again.
Yeah, way planning. Like so much more planning than we did.
Yeah.
And honestly,
we did a lot of planning.
We thought we did. We thought we had it figured out.
We did.
And then we thought we had it figured out again. And it kept going that way.
Right.
And then finally, like the final last future-proofing rack rebuild, we think we got it right.
We do. We don't see, even with some new pieces that are coming in, there's enough rack space open. Everything is already patched in. It's all plug and play.
We just have to plug it in. Stick it in the rack, plug it in. It's got a home on the patch bay already.
Yep.
Everything's ready to go.
All the I/O is there. We're not even using, I mean, we have it all hooked up, but we're not using all the faders on the board, but it's there. It's there if we need it down the road, if we want to eventually record on the board and use short faders for recording and long faders for monitoring, playback. All the I/O is there.
Yeah.
It is all hooked up and ready to go.
Everything's ready to go.
So we don't need to take it apart again. So that is the end of phase 2 in this video. Now phase 3, we're gonna come back, and that's really phase 3. We're done hooking everything up and we're using it. But now we want to talk about where we are now, what we're really doing now that the studio is set up in this particular format, in this state, if you will. I want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll want to talk a little bit about the sound, which is what everyone asks about. The sound between this and plugins and hardware and this and that. We'll talk all about that in phase 3. So make sure you like, share, subscribe. Go back and watch phase 1. Please go back and watch all the other videos. It does help us out a lot. And we will see you in the next video in phase 3.